So I just want to start by apologizing for the obvious missing footage of this video. The clip from the drawing of the base sketch is MIA. I don't know what happened to it. Anywho, I made a poll of what to discuss next on my speed drawing, and someone wanted writing advice on character development. Authors tend to vary with how they tackle a story and the thing that is character development, but I'll give you some insight on how I personally deal with it. First, I'd like to state that there is a difference between character development and character growth. Development can be either bad or good as long as it's progress into something different. This typically has to do with the personality or emotional state of the character, while growth is essentially the physical state. When Doctor Strange learns to be more compassionate and patient with others and less self-centered, that was character development. When he learns about magic and turns his life around mastering the art, that was character growth. So, giving your character more physical power does not equate to character development. I've heard plenty of people say you need to do character sheets and fully know your characters inside and out before you even start. For someone like me, it's a waste of time since my writing habits greatly differ from most, but I think the majority of people would find it helpful. Character sheets or not, before you begin writing, it's best to know characters' appearance, personality, relationship with other characters, their purpose in the story, and a loose backstory. The details will come in time if you don't have it all figured out at the beginning, but please know that the less planning you do in the beginning, the more tedious the self-editing process will be later. Something important to keep in mind as you write is consistency. If you have someone who flies off the handle in some scenes but is the calm voice of reason in others, then you don't have a consistent, realistic character. You have a plot device who looks like a person. If you need your character to do something or go somewhere, then manipulate circumstances to make that happen. Don't make your character do something, well, out of character. If you have a shy, timid gal who's never fought a day in her life, and you want to put her in a death match to discover she has hidden magical powers, then you need to give her a good reason to participate, because this bitch ain't participating willingly. If you have a consistent character, then you're on the right track to have him grow and develop without it looking like plot convenience instead. I've seen too many authors treat their characters like tools to get from scene to scene, and it removes all of my investment. If I'm not invested in your characters, then I'm not invested in your plot or story. Character development entails a lot, and it differs from person to person. Some characters need to go from weak and innocent to more cynical and badass. Others need to go from egotistical and cocky to more compassionate and humble. What they have in common are events to learn these lessons from. Ask yourself what needs to transpire to spark the kind of development you want. Every character has flaws, and development either takes a character down a path to learn how to overcome these flaws or delve deeper into them. If you want your little angel to learn to be a fighter, then you need to put your little angel through combat. They also need a reason to fight. Senseless violence is just that, senseless. Maybe they need someone to save, and saving requires taking some lives. Maybe their life is suddenly flipped upside down when someone they love is murdered, and now your character is forced down a path of revenge. I don't know, but they need to have a convincing reason to go down their path of development. With that said, development doesn't happen all at once. Your average office worker man doesn't go from a relatable, caring husband/father to the Punisher overnight. Events and backstory need to be lined up to steadily descend your poor character down a dark, harrowing journey of madness and destruction. So a defining moment sets your character on a path and the plot in motion. The personality needs to be established before this defining moment so the readers will fully understand who this person is on a normal day. This is why consistency is necessary too. This way, the readers will notice as trauma or events change a character's perspective or habit. One of the worst ways to implement character development is to tell without showing. Don't have characters who just talk about how much another character has grown, or only mention the life the MC used to live before the readers were introduced to the life he or she lives now. You have to show it. Readers want to see your character progress, not just hear about it. This might seem obvious, but a good question to constantly ask yourself is, what would I realistically do if I was this character with this personality, this backstory, and this particular instance? If you'd realistically say, no, screw you and your red pill, I want a normal life, then you need to continue manipulating the situation until the red pill becomes the better choice, or at least on an even playing field with the blue pill. If the Matrix franchise established Neo with a decent job and a family he loved in the beginning, then taking the red pill probably wouldn't have been his first choice. A good way to show development is to have your characters make tough choices throughout the story. The choice of revenge on a person who's murdered someone the main character cares for, or lie or to tell the truth when all options possess risks and consequences. A great way to show a relatable character is to have them sometimes make the wrong choice when the answer isn't obvious or simple. Your character then needs to learn from the wrong choices. Hardships offer development, and that development happens much faster when your character realizes they've caused those hardships. I'm not saying to make your character stupid and arrogant just to cause irreversible mayhem to learn from, but don't miss opportunities to raise difficult scenarios that aren't simple to solve. It's kind of like the choice between saving a bus of strangers or your lover. There's no great ending to either scenario. Someone's going to die, and the decision says a lot about the person. Whether your character goes through a full metamorphosis by the end of the book or keeps their personality fully intact, they still need to learn a lesson of some kind, even if it's a dark lesson. If they'd still make the same decisions by the end of the book that they've made at the beginning, then you done fucked up. The development of one character won't be the same for the next, or at least it shouldn't. This means you need a diverse set of characters who have a distinct way of talking and tackling a situation. If you throw a dozen people into an arena to fight to the death against experienced gladiators, then you can bet your ass not all of them are going to choose to handle this life-threatening issue the same way. You need to know how your characters would handle a situation no matter what scenario you place them in. This all comes down to backstory and personality. Their personalities should be set in the beginning, and their backstory should be developing with the character as they go if it's not pre-planned already. I've read books where if you swapped a main character's dialogue or actions with another's, nothing about the story or scene would have seemed out of place. This means your character lacks an identity, and it's hard to sit through a whole book with this problem. If they lack an identity, then there's no room for effective development. A lot of people don't go into writing considering character development. They want to tell a story about a certain set of characters and give little thought about the details. It's okay if teaching your character lesson isn't on your agenda. You don't have to have a message like bullying is bad or seeking revenge is a constant loop of pain that never ends unless you learn to forgive. You just have to know that events change and morph people differently, sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse. If your character who's never killed anyone before guns down another person, they aren't going to escape the situation unscathed emotionally. They aren't going to just walk away like, oh well, that was a shitty situation, sure hope that doesn't happen again. A transformation of some kind has to happen. It's up to you what kind of transformation you want. Always consider the emotional consequences of each action and choice your character makes. If you aren't prepared for the traumatized reaction your character would naturally have, then you probably aren't ready to traumatize them in that way. If character development is on your mind from chapter 1, and you know what you want your character to morph into by the end, then I suggest considering their traits and what's best suited to get them there realistically. If you start out with a lazy guy who dropped out of school and refuses to work while living with his friends, only later to find out he's the rightful heir to the throne in a fantasy world he never knew existed, then you've chosen a hard path. You have a character who's unmotivated and has shown severe lack interest in hard work, two major things that are required to run a magical kingdom. It's not impossible to craft this man into a good king, but it just doesn't seem likely. Now, if you start with a man who's smart and determined to work for what he wants, even if it takes him down a not-so-legal path, then that's something to build on. This guy has the traits required to make things happen and perhaps run a kingdom. He just needs to get on the right road and realize he's capable of doing the right thing while also benefiting others and himself. Since I've already used a Doctor Strange example and it's a movie most people have seen, I'll expand on it. Strange starts out as a narcissistic, genius surgeon who has little empathy for other people. He sees them almost as lesser beings, and becomes so obsessed in his own work and glory that he doesn't set aside time for love or friendship. He probably would have been fine living the rest of his life this way if unfortunate events didn't ensue. So we have a genius jackass who's chill with remaining a jackass. This means the writers had to manipulate events to take Strange on a journey he wouldn't have naturally gone on. Spoiler warning, by the way. Strange gets into an accident, ruining his hands, career, and everything he prided himself on, forcing him to seek supernatural help in another country. He's introduced to a world of magic he has no experience in, training side by side with people who know more than him. Strange is used to being the brightest in the room, so being in a situation where he has to learn the basics and allow others to show him up is both humiliating and frustrating experience that he must endure to get stronger. Strange is a fast learner though, and we know this because of his established history. As he grows in magic, he develops better social skills through magical training and his inability to succeed by bullying others. After all, if his master didn't want him there, she could kick him out at any time. No one was going to put up with his bullshit, so he either had to drop his pride and learn the spells like everyone else, or go back home without a cure for his hands or a future in his career. As a result, Strange finally learns to respect others despite where their knowledge or experience stand against his. He even offers to sacrifice himself by the end, a selfless act he would have never considered at the beginning. Strange is practically a new man now. He still has his snark, wits, and genius, but he's overcome his ego and selfishness. To give an example of a character that doesn't change by the end of the book, but still has character development, let me talk about Disney's Alice from the 1950s movie, Alice in Wonderland. Alice is a young girl who is bored of reading normal books about normal things. She wants something new, something different, something that doesn't abide by the same rules. It's a harmless daydream that becomes a reality when a talking rabbit with a waistcoat and a watch rushes by and she follows him down a rabbit hole into Wonderland. Quirky nonsense is essentially the theme of this new world, and it's weirdly fun at first for Alice, but its charm eventually wears off by the time she's done searching for the rabbit and only wishes to return home. The Queen of Hearts abuses her power, and since there are no rules that make sense in Wonderland, the Queen is free to send her guards after Alice to behead her over mere pettiness. Events teach Alice that normalcy isn't necessarily a bad thing, and too much childish nonsense can do harm if not kept in check. By the end, Alice is still her curious child self. She hasn't developed into a new person like Dr. Strange, but she did develop a new perspective on life. She might still want more pictures and books, but she's thankful for rules and normalcy now. She understands there can be a healthy balance between having fun and following rules. Here's the good news. If you think realistically and write realistically, character development will naturally happen, because that's how real people develop every day. You hear people say they are who they are because of what they survived in the past, and they wouldn't change anything if they had to do it again. People naturally change with life events, and so should your characters. Alright, I'm out of time. Thanks for watching, everyone.